Good evening. My name is Maggie Qi, representing the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. And I want to welcome you to this meeting to discuss the Seven Corners Transportation Phasing Study. This is the second of 3 public meetings that will be held during the course of the study. This meeting is to provide an update on the phasing study that is evaluating the order of transportation improvements in Seven Corners. The phases for initial improvements were developed considering the feedback received from the first round of public meetings held in February 2021, and will be presented tonight along with the technical analysis results. We want to hear from you about the initial multimodal improvements to be implemented in the area. The feedback from the meeting will help determine the phases for initial transportation improvements as funding becomes available. Now, let's set a few expectations. Before we begin the meeting, I want to review some guidelines so everyone can participate and get the most out of this meeting. Please note that this session is being recorded and will be shared on the project website. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. However, you may choose to type your question into the Q&A box. Look for the 3 dots located at the bottom right of your screen, either at the end of the presentation, or you may submit your questions along the way during the presentation. For people calling into the meeting, we will provide introductions for how to ask your questions at the conclusion of the presentation. We also encourage you to submit your written comments to the online survey or to the email address that will be provided at the end of the presentation. We ask that you do not use the chat feature to comment or ask questions, as someone may be joining us by phone, and we want to ensure that everyone can equally participate and hear all of the questions. The chat feature is enabled so that you can ask the host for technical assistance only. Now I would like to introduce Tom Bashali, the Director of the Fairfax County Department of Transportation. Tom.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to spend with us this evening. This is really an exciting project to remake the Seven Corners area in a way that's much more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and in a way that can move traffic more efficiently through the intersection. So we appreciate your participation. We're looking forward to your feedback. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, Tom. Tonight, we are joined by the staff from the Fairfax County Department of Transportation, including the Chief of the Site Analysis and the Transportation Planning Division, Jeff Herman, the Chief of the Transportation Planning Section, Mike Garcia, myself, Maggie Qi. I'm the team lead for our modeling and the corridors team, and also I will be moderating the discussion tonight. Nadisa Praka, who is the project manager for the Seven Corners Transportation Phasing Study, and she will be given the presentation tonight. Farouk Hassanjan, who is our host tonight, and will provide technical assistance and help with the phone questions. And we are also joined by our consultant team, Kittleson Associates, and their team member, Inspire Green. I will now turn it over to Nadisa to begin the presentation.
Thanks, Maggie, and good evening, everyone. I'm Nandita Paradkar, Transportation Planner with Fairfax County Department of Transportation and the Project Manager for the Seven Corners Phasing Study. Welcome to the study presentation. This is the second round of public meetings we are holding of this study. The first one was held earlier this year in February, with the last round of public meetings to be held in. The focus of today's presentation is to look at possible initial phases of planned transportation improvements to be implemented in Seven Corners area. With that, I'll move forward. Here's the agenda for meeting, going over the study background, the intent of the study, and the process used to help determine the order in which planned transportation improvements will be implemented in Seven Corners area. Provide a summary of the outcome meetings earlier in February. I'll provide a recap of typical conditions reflecting pre-pandemic conditions, which was presented during the last round of meetings. And I'll go over the potential initial around 2030, along with the analysis results and how pedestrian and bicycle facilities may be prioritized in the area, followed by an update on the next steps and schedule. And we all can provide feedback through various sources and also through survey, followed by question and comment session towards the end. The Seven Corners visioning effort, which took place from 2012 to 2015, included a community task force that invited local residents, property and business owners, community and civic organizations to participate in an open discussion about the future of Seven Corners. A transportation study for this visioning effort 2014, which resulted in improvement recommendations from the task force. In Board of Supervisors adopted comprehensive plan amendment and approved 10 follow-on motions. In 2020, in response to follow-on motions 4 and 6, with board directing staff to develop a funding plan for the transportation recommended in the plan and to further study the grid of streets, we started a phasing study to help order transportation improvements will be implemented to help with continuing to apply for funding to construct. The study is anticipated to be completed in summer 2022. The transportation improvement recommended in the comprehensive plan amendment adopted by the board in 2015 include a ring road from Hillwood Avenue connects Route 7 to the intersection of Roosevelt Boulevard and Wilson Boulevard, crossing over Route 50. A four-way intersection at Leesburg Pike, Sleepy Hollow Road, and Wilson Boulevard. Widening of Route 50 to 6 from Arlington Fairfax County line, close to South Street. Shifted that connect Route 50 to the new ring road on each side of the new intersection. Construction of a new road, Wilson Multicultural Center and Village Center to Route 7. Additional local streets to better connect road network with redevelopment. And these transportation improvements will also provide and enhance bicycle and pedestrian facilities in Seven Corners. The intent of the study is to find transportation improvements by looking at the interim conditions between the improvements to be constructed, conceptual, assess property needs and constructability, and develop more robust cost estimates, and eventually to help with enhancing the funding applications and to continue to apply for funding. The process steps to conduct the study to determine the order of improvements are assessing and evaluate travel conditions in the area for motorists, pedestrians, bicyclists, and transit users, reflecting pre-pandemic conditions. This step was completed and the findings presented during the first round of outreach completed in February. The next step was to develop and analyze two future build conditions, with 2045 being the horizon year and interim year with some in place. We are currently working on the 20 analysis and initial phases of improvements, which I'll be presenting shortly. After receiving public and stakeholder feedback through this round of outreach, we will continue to develop the logical and feasible order of improvements and assess property and right-of-way needs and develop conceptual plans along with cost estimates. The final findings, along with the preferred concept, will be presented to the public in a third round of meetings to be held in spring 2022. Next few slides summarize the outreach from the previous round of public meetings from February. Two meetings were held in English and in Spanish earlier this year in February. The existing conditions analysis reflecting pre-pandemic conditions was presented. And as part of our outreach efforts, we feedback about the locations, the timing of congestion in the area, where people want to walk or bike, and the means to access these locations. We reached out to around 300 home and business owners, 40 religious organizations, 12 nonprofit and social service organizations, 12 recreational centers, schools, and we requested feedback through various channels, including the project webpage, social media, and survey. There were around 38 written comments from the survey questions and online sources. And the resident concerns were categorized into different groups based on these comments. As you can see, the queuing concerns, turning conflicts, bicycle and pedestrian safety and facilities, signal timing, extended wait times, access issues, conflicts between the vehicles and bicyclists, transit frequency, with not so clear wayfinding and directional signs, and the lane changes leaving issues with many roads intersecting here, with majority of concerns related to queuing and turning conflicts. Detailed outreach is also available on our project webpage following the link here. Giving a recap of the typical conditions analysis from the last round. The graphic here shows the complicated runs through the interchange area, showing the afternoon peak with more people traveling in the afternoon. And refer to this as a spaghetti diagram, which shows the major conflicts and converging points while you travel through the interchange. As you can see, the major movements in the afternoon are westbound Route 7 towards Falls Church and westbound Wilson West 50. There is also another major conflict and merge point where eastbound Route 7 and Hillwood Avenue come together in the interchange area. This appears with one of the pedestrian paths with longest walking times in the interchange area. Route 50 are known as major conflicts, as they do not conflict with other movements. But with all these heavy converging movements and people wanting to cross and wait a long time, ring road concept will help break down these movements with them happening on the outside, which will also help create a safer condition and minimize conflicts between vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. Also allowing for the inside four-way intersection to be more comfortable for people to walk and bike through it. The map here shows the level of traffic stress called LTS rating for bicyclists for the lowest stress bike routes, and red showing the highest stressed segments, which are undesirable for most bike riders. Level of traffic stress is a measure we use to evaluate safety and comfort for bicyclists based on the facilities available. It uses a score of 1 to 4, with LTS 1 bike lane on low speed and low volume roads shown by light green shaded segments here, with LTS 2 bike lane on a low speed street in green. And LTS 3 typically includes narrow bike lane or shoulder on a busy street, as indicated in brown, and LTS 4 with no bike lane on a busy street, as shown in red. The interchange area and the major roads that lead into it are in red, and through this we are showing that biking area. Even with sidewalks added to the interchange, they are narrow, and there's no buffer like street trees that would help make biking more comfortable and safer through the interchange. So accommodating bike users will be important as we construct the ring road and other parts of the street network. Similar to biking comfort and facility, the map here shows the assessment of pedestrian facilities in the study area, with missing sidewalks indicated in white segments, available shared use paths in purple, standard sidewalk for a limited segment in the interchange indicated in blue along Route 50 and Sleepy Hollow Road, and standard sidewalks in the interchange area and roads leading to it, as shown in red. Substandard sidewalks are indicative of sidewalks that are not consistent in terms of width, materials, or with missing landscape buffer, or in some areas and are relatively high, which increases the potential for vehicle pedestrian conflicts along pedestrian routes. And some ADA pedestrian ramps in the area either don't meet the current standards or are not provided. So the focus is definitely to address these issues as we reconfigure the interchange. Moving on to phasing concepts and analysis. Based on the typical conditions analysis, travel demand in the future, feedback, and constructability, we developed and analyzed multiple phasing scenarios in order to identify the most critical pieces of infrastructure to serve the community, as all of the planned improvements in Seven Corners cannot be built at the same time. On an initial phase of implementation around 2030, one of the initial phases we looked at is the ring road side of the interchange as a scenario 1 moving forward. The improvements for this scenario: ring road connecting Route 7 in the Broad Street in the north, terminating at East Broad Street, with slightly realigned East Broad Street segment. Hillwood Avenue terminating at Ring Road, with potential removal of connections between Hillwood and the interchange. Shift of bridge over Route 50 a little to the west, and a bridge likely requiring demolition. Slightly adjusted ramps to and from 50 on the west side. And we are looking at potentially removing Castle Road access from the ring road with this concept. And we'll be working with the community closely and requesting feedback about this possible closure. In general, we are looking at 2 lanes in along this roadway with a center turn lane, and 2-way cycle track on the east side of this segment. Sidewalk on both sides of the roadway along with landscape panels, and pedestrian crosswalks will be provided at each leg of the intersections. Another phase for improvements we looked at extending the road across Route 50 in the southeast quadrant with new and adjusted ramp to and from Route 50 east of interchange. And this segment would include cycle track and sidewalks and exclusive bus lane to accommodate Route 7 BRT, with the potential extension of Ring Road to connect with Roosevelt Boulevard at but we'll keep the segment narrow and not as wide until connection is made to Roosevelt Boulevard, Route 7 BRT implementation phase. And there are development options help with funding for this scenario 2 that are not as available for scenario 1. And this concept is also looking at potential relocation of the transit center to the west of this segment. And I'll go over this in more detail in the next slide. Considering the issue with the grade at the current location, and also the ability for buses to circulate to and from the transit center, with adjustments to the ramp accessing Route 50 on the east, we are looking at potentially relocating the transit center along the access road west of the scenario 2 segment. There could be locations to consider in the future. But for this location, able to access the transit center from the interchange and the service road, and circulate back on Route 7 and from Route 7 onto the service road. This center will retain similar capacity as existing location. With that, I'll pause so Maggie can go over some guidelines for people who join late, and I'll continue the presentation thereafter.
Thank you, Nadisa. Now the presentation is halfway through. I wanted to take a quick pause right there. For anyone who joined us late, welcome. This is being recorded live, and we will post the presentation to the project website after the meeting. We have a Q&A feature in the bottom right of the corner, so if you have any questions, feel free to put them there. Again, we will answer all the questions at the end of the presentation. We will try to answer all questions as to the extent we can. Should we run out of time answering questions, we will gladly take them all and make sure that we answer them and post them to the project website. That's all for now. Nadisa?
Thanks, Maggie. Moving on, did the traffic analysis for the concepts that I shared earlier, and I'll go over the results now. One of the measures we looked at to understand the impact of the scenarios that I mentioned through analysis is the vehicle travel times and a comparison between baseline, which is the existing configuration for the interchange in 2030 without improvements, and with scenario 1 and 2. We looked at some of the major improvements to the interchange area. Path 1 is the Route 50 segment from Annandale Road to Patrick Henry Drive. It shows travel time savings of around 1.4 minutes with improvements in place. Path 2 is the eastbound Route 7 segment going from Cherry Street to Rio Drive. It shows a travel time savings of 6.3 minutes with scenario 1 and 4.7 minutes with scenario 2. Path 3 is the travel time segment from Patrick Henry Drive along Wilson Boulevard going to Rio Drive along Route 7. It shows travel time savings of 4.7 minutes with scenario 1 and 6 minutes with scenario 2. Path 4 is the segment Route 7 from Rio Drive going towards Patrick Henry Drive along Wilson Boulevard. It remains the same between the scenarios. Path 5 is the segment along Route 7 going from Rio Drive to Annandale Road. It shows increased travel times by about 3.3 minutes for scenario 1 and about 50 seconds with scenario 2. The increased travel times shown here are also indicative of the improved pedestrian and bicycle movements through the interchange area. Here we are showing the level of service indicating the traffic delays at the intersections in the study area for 2030 baseline conditions following our analysis. Level of service is a measure that describes how intersections are using the familiar school grade designation A through F. Level of service is based upon the average delay that vehicles experience at a given intersection for all movements. And like school, level of service A is the best with little to no traffic delay, and level of service is the worst with very long traffic delays greater than 80 seconds at signalized intersections. But different from a school grading system where we are trying to get level of service A, for traffic, we have a different perspective because we build infrastructure and we're trying to maximize the usage of that. So we are trying for E or better for areas such as Seven Corners and also other areas in Northern Virginia. As during the PM peak hour, most intersections operate at level of service E or F with delays 55 seconds or greater without the improvements in place. Including intersections along Route 7, Patrick Henry Drive, Wilson Drive, and John Marshall Drive, and intersections along Wilson Boulevard. The graphic here shows level of service for the intersections with scenario 1 in place. With changes to the roadway network, many of the movements that were centered on the interchange area are now shifted to the ring road. Much of the travel demand moving to and from 50 west side to and from Route 7 south side is routed through the ring road. This is a high level of demand and strains the capacity on the ring road intersections, leading to level of service E and F conditions at multiple locations. But this is barely at the threshold. Most people can get through in one signal phase. Outside the central interchange area, operate with reduced delays, significant improvements along Wilson Boulevard and north of interchange along Route 7. And also this concept brings bicycle and pedestrian improvements with cars moving through the interchange with safe maneuvers. The slide shows the level for the intersections 1 and 2 combined. There is further improvement in the delays with level of service changing from F to E along Ring Road, Patrick Henry Drive, and Wilson Boulevard intersections showing reduced wait times, with significant improvement to the central interchange area showing level of service C with less than 35 seconds of delay. Looking at the pedestrian crossing times, the walking times shown on the graphic is for 2 locations, indicating the 2 longest times to cross the interchange. On the top north leg, we show it would take about 3.8 minutes for baseline scenario to cross from Italian restaurant to where Grand Mart is, to car dealership or to get to Eden Center. At the bottom south leg, we show it would take about 3.3 minutes to get from Sleepy Hollow Road to Mobile Gas Station to be able to get to the transit center. With the improvement with the ring road with scenario 1 and 2, there is a minor improvement in the crossing time for the top moment, and the bottom moment shows improvement by about 1 minute by improving the signal timings with reduced movements within the central interchange area. And for the north leg, there is a small difference in crossing times between scenario 1 and 2, roughly around 15 seconds, which mostly is due to the probabilistic nature of the simulation model. Considering the bicycle and pedestrian needs, this is to show the major destinations to walk or bike in the area based on the feedback we received in February. Top locations were identified as the shopping center area, including Home Depot, Giant, Safeway, Target, Eden Center, and City of Falls Church. And the walking and biking connections to these major destinations in the order of priority was identified as Route 50 being the most commonly used, Route 7 as the second most commonly used, Wilson Boulevard as fairly used, Patrick Henry Drive, Hillwood Avenue, and Aspen Lane as less commonly used, and Sleepy Hollow Road as used. Bicycle and pedestrian facilities planned along Ring Road, Route 50 and Route 7 as part of this study will be connected to adjacent facilities that Fairfax County plans in the area, and that will come with redevelopment, with separated bike lane for Wilson, shared use paths along Sleepy Hollow Road, Patrick Henry Drive, Wilston Drive Loop, and John Marshall Drive. Moving on to next steps and schedule. The next steps would be to identify other phases of improvements while continuing the 2030 and 2045 analysis, and identify the priority order of these improvements, incorporating the feedback gathered from this round of public outreach. We will then develop conceptual plans, planning level cost estimates. We'll look at property impacts and the cost to build each piece of the ring road. We'll be looking at other possible phases of improvements as part of the 2030 analysis after gathering the feedback. We'll develop the preferred recommendation with cost estimates, and we plan to hold the third round of public meetings, as I mentioned earlier, to present this information in spring 2022. Your attending the meetings and providing feedback will help us put the improvements in the order of preference and make sure we have the improvements identified that will help most people. We plan to complete the study in summer 2022. We applied for funding with the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and we'll be applying for next round of smart scale funding from VDOT this summer, and we'll continue to further look for opportunities for funding so we can start to build the improvements. We'd like to hear any questions or comments you have, and there are various ways to provide feedback. You could scan the QR code here to take the survey. The survey will close on December 10th. We would definitely want to hear, or you could also go to the project website and provide comments, or send me an email or call me. With that, I'll open it up to questions and turn it over to Maggie. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Nadisa. Now we would like to open the meeting up for questions or comments. Please use the Q&A function to type your question for the moderators to read aloud. The feature is located at the bottom right of your screen with the 3 dots. Please make sure your questions go to all panelists. Again, we ask that you do not use the chat feature to comment or ask questions, as someone may be joining us by phone, and we want to ensure that everyone can equally participate and hear all of the questions. We will answer all submitted questions first before taking phone questions. If you are joining us by phone, please push *3 to raise your hand to ask a question. When it is your turn, Farouk will call on you to ask your question. And after you are finished, please push *3 to unraise your hand. If calling in and you are looking at the presentation on a computer, please move away from your computer to ask your question. After you have asked your question, the host will mute you and put you back in the queue so that we can get to all questions. Depending on the amount of questions, we may not be able to address them all today. However, we will respond to all questions, and all the questions and answers from today's presentation will be posted on the project website. So with that, I'm going to start providing the speaker with the questions. So the first question is the ring road elevated?
It is elevated. I mean, it is at grade and above the grade in portions. So on the western side that I just discussed over Route 50, it is above the grade. But when it connects with Castle Place and Sleepy Hollow Road, and when it comes down to Route 7, it is at grade. And again, on the east side, it goes above the grade when it crosses Route 50.
Indeed, this is Mike. Can you go back to the graphic that shows it so that you can just kind of point it out too?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, right here, it goes above the grade when crossing Route 50 on the west side, and also the same thing on the east side when it crosses over Route 50. But the rest of the section is all at grade.
Okay, thank you, Ladisa.
Sure.
Next question. Would you please confirm that scenario 1 would degrade the situation from E to F at Route 7 and Castle Road intersection, and that for scenario 2, it would degrade the situation at Sleepy Hollow, Castle Place, Castle Road?
Can you please repeat the question, Maggie, for scenario 1, which location you're pointing to?
Okay, I think there's two parts. I'm gonna give you the first one. Would you please confirm that scenario 1 would degrade the situation from E to F at Route 7 and the Castle Road intersection? Yes, I think it's right here.
Yeah, this is the, that's right. With the traffic coming from Hillwood and Route 7 shifting to the Ring Road, we see certain degradation here. But again, it's barely at the threshold of level of service F.
Okay, the second part of the question. For scenario 2, it will degrade the situation at Sleepy Hollow, Castle Place, Castle Road.
So from, yeah, we're showing from C to D. That's right. There is a little bit of degradation here, but level of service D is again, we are looking at less than 50 seconds of delay.
Okay. Thank you, Nadisa.
Sure.
I believe that's the two questions I have right now. Please use the Q&A function to type your question for the moderators to read aloud. This feature is located at the bottom right of your screen with the 3 dots. Please make sure your question go to all panelists. Okay, I got more questions, Leticia. So the next question, it also has 2 parts. So the first part is, do the bicycle improvements take into account the proposed Arlington Boulevard bike trail project?
Yes, the bicycle improvements incorporate what we have in our bicycle master plan. And I believe they incorporate the plan from Arlington County. Mike, would you like to add anything?
Sure. So we are trying, as we go through this particular effort for the bicycle improvements, we're trying to match up with the neighboring jurisdictions, not just Arlington County, but also the City of Falls Church as well. So when we have the bicycle master plans or the equivalent thereof, we make sure that when we're going through this effort, that as we're going through our evaluation, our analysis, and our toolbox, going through the level of traffic stress and the level and pedestrian level of comfort, that we can make sure to match those facilities to the extent we can.
Okay.
While I have the floor real quick, there's a few people that have put questions in the chat. If you can copy your question over and put it in a Q&A, that would be helpful. If not, we'll try to grab them out of the chat in just a moment.
Great. Thank you, Leticia and Mike. And there's the second part of this question. Will the terminating ends of the ring road segue into bicycle improvements on the west side on Route 7 and on the east side?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Sure. Will the terminating ends of the ring road segue into bicycle improvements on the west side on Route 7 and on the east side? Mike, can you see the question? So,
Yes, I can see the
okay.
question and assist in this one. So to the extent that we have the bicycle improvements on the ring road being on the inside, we will have to work on transitions to get them to improvements on Route 7 East Broad Street and this that leads into the city. On the other side of Route, as the ring road approaches Route 7 in the Fairfax County on the east side, we do have kind of comparable facilities that we've planned at either shared use path or cycle track on Route 7 that we can make sure to have these this particular cycle track connect into. So we would plan for that to occur so that it just wouldn't terminate.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Next question. Was there any consideration in aligning the various roads, Route 7, Route 50, to form few intersection conflicts as opposed to building an entire ring road?
The previous study that was conducted in 2015 looked at change concepts. After a thorough review from the stakeholders, analysis, ring road was determined as a improvement at Seven Corners interchange to improve not only the vehicular movement and also enhance bicycle and pedestrian facilities.
And I'll also just add on to this a little bit. So the question talked about kind of having Route 7 and Route 50 come together and kind of removing some of the other roads is the way I read the question. They are at different elevations as they do come together, and that's why the ramps are there to bring them together. To the extent that, and they also are at an angle, as you can see, it's not quite a right angle, it's more of a skewed angle that would cause us to have to really look at what kind of at grade intersection that would occur. Based on that particular effort, we didn't seem that it was feasible, especially given the volumes that are currently there on Route 50 and on Route 7, to try to have these two particular roads come together. The idea was to kind of facilitate connections using the ring road while still allowing the other roads to connect and be part of the Seven Corners CBCs, and then also to facilitate redevelopment within the area.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Next question. You mentioned that existing Castle Road access is planned to be disconnected at the Ring Road. Could you explain the rationale for this proposal? You also mentioned further community outreach on this.
So we are trying to, as part of our analysis, we looked at disconnecting the axis so that the Ring Road will, with the curvature that it has right now, to accommodate that and the movements here. And also we are looking to have the neighborhood access from Sleepy Hollow Road to Nicholson Street. And yeah, if we would reach out to the community with any concerns the community may have with this. Don't have any meetings planned yet, but we would do that in the future.
Okay.
Maggie, hold on real quick. And just to add on, where Nandita has her pointer, it does show that there's 2 dash lines. So to the extent that we hear from the community that the connection wants to be retained, we haven't made a decision on whether to sever it or not sever it. We wanted to get through the kind of the first round of evaluation analysis, and then also use this meeting, these public meetings, as a way to facilitate feedback so that we can hear from the community to say whether this is a good idea or not a good idea.
Okay. Thank you, Nadisa and Mike. Next question. What will happen to homeowners and their homes that are being displaced?
This is a planning level study due phase, which we anticipate around 2026 or later. Around that phase, when we have more developed plans and design plans, that's when we'll have a better idea about the impacts to the property, and that's when the property owners will be contacted, and we will work with the property owners and try to come to a mutual consensus and forward.
Okay. Thank you, Nadisa. Next question. I live on Castle Road. I have no problem in blocking Castle access to the Ring Road. But most important question is whether consideration has been given to installing a noise abatement wall.
The noise wall would come again during the design phase, which is a few years out from now, and there will be a detailed noise study that will be conducted and a determination made at that point of time.
I'd also point out that if the community is looking for something as we go through the evaluation, that's a chance for the community to let us know kind of what they see and what they kind of want to have as far as mitigation goes. Just to everyone's understanding, the Ring Road is meant to be a kind of a lower speed road, not something that you might experience, say, on Route 7 as you're driving between Seven Corners and Bailey's Crossroads, where the speed limit is a little higher. The speed limit that we currently have on that we're anticipating for the Ring Road is 25 miles per hour.
Okay. Thank you, Nadisa and Mike. So I got a follow-up comment on the question, the previous question. Basically, it say FYI, the Arlington Boulevard project extends from Roslyn to Fairfax Circle. Mike, do you want to add anything, or this is just notes to be taken?
I think it's just an FYI for us, so thank you.
Okay. Next. Is the Ring Road scenario final?
The Ring Road concept has been developed based on the previous study that I mentioned earlier that was conducted. But through this study, we are looking at implement this in phases, and we are trying to see implementing which phase makes sense based on the community feedback and what people would like to see as the initial. But that so we based on the feedback that we received through this round of out, and also that is available right now. We are trying to gather that information you would for us to build. But we are still looking at other phases as part of this 2030 analysis, and this is definitely not a final concept that we are looking at.
Okay, thank you, Nadisa. Next question. When will your analysis of noise and the pollution impacts to residential areas be available?
Like I mentioned earlier, the noise study will be conducted during the design and engineering phase, and we are anticipating that to be conducted around the 2026, 2027 timeframe, again, based on the availability of funding. At that time, we'll be able to have conduct a detailed study and share.
Okay, thank you, Nadisa. Next question. It was difficult for me to join WebEx, so I missed some slides. But looking at slide 16, can you explain where the ring road is between Route 7 and Route 50? Is this on top of Patrick Henry Drive?
This is west of Patrick Henry Drive. If you're looking at this scenario 2 segment, Patrick Henry Drive is towards east of the segment. And the presentation, the recording will be available on our webpage. And you could watch that from the beginning.
Okay, so I do want to mention the recording of tonight's meeting will be posted to our project website. So if you missed some slides, please do visit our project website to view the whole presentation. Thank you, Nadisa, for answering that question. So the next question. Thank you for including multimodal into this design. Unfortunately, the design very much prioritizes driving. The ring road brings more pollution and noise and possibly induced demand. Given Fairfax County's climate goals, why not increase people's throughput by making a design that makes multimodal transportation the priority?
Nandi, this is Mike. I'm going to chime in on this one. So we are going through a multimodal evaluation. If you've gone through the interchange before, it is difficult to walk through and almost impossible to bike through. Cars do get bottlenecked in here. They do sit, they do generate pollution that way. So sometimes you have to look at kind of the whole totality of it. So what we're trying to here, and we're also trying to look at it from a perspective of driver safety, pedestrian safety, and bicycle safety. That's another reason there's a lot of confusion through this particular interchange. Cars do end up in the wrong spot, and sometimes they block the box occurs quite frequently. As such, when we're going through this particular evaluation, the metrics that they talked on earlier, pedestrian level of comfort, bicycle level of traffic stress, transit rider access, those are all considerations that are being taken into account during this particular effort. And they're ones that are helping us to drive kind of to make some of the decisions in terms of which phases might go first and kind of help us with the implementation and geometric designs as we're looking to try to advance this concept from planning to a little bit more of a concept that can kind of move on to the next stages of looking for funding. So as we're going through this, we believe that we are trying to also be responsive to climate change as we are not trying to induce more demand through this particular area, but in fact just trying to improve the traffic circulation through it, both for the local access and for the regional access as well. So it's our hope that when we go through this particular effort that we're not trying to induce the demand, as I said, but we're trying to kind of unclog it, make it safer for pedestrians, safer for bicyclists, safer for the transit users who commute through here, and safer for the drivers who experience the interchange on a daily basis.
Thank you, Mike. Next question. Thank you for this outreach. There are many positive changes that reflect the community input. This work is long overdue. Have a wonderful night. Thank you for your positive feedback. I believe I reached to the end of the questions.
Maggie, we have one more question from the chat.
Oh, okay. Let me go there.
Did you manage to locate that? That's the last one.
Oh, okay. How do you plan to inform the community of plans and phases? We need to be told more and more often.
Maggie, this is Tanya. I'll take that question.
Okay.
I would definitely invite people to visit the study webpage. Maybe Nanditha, can you go to the last slide of your presentation?
Sure.
And that website, which is fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/study/7-corners, is going to be the best place for you to find information about the study and the activities. We also will post updates on our Facebook page, which is FFX Transportation. So you can find us there, or you can sign up for Fairfax Alerts. If you go to the county's website and you search for Fairfax Alerts, again, there are subgroups where you can opt in to receive text messages or emails about DOT projects and information and meetings. You'll see the different groups when you go to sign up. I just wanted to add one more thing about the QR code on this slide. If you scan that QR code, it will take you to the survey in English. We also have versions of the survey in Spanish, Arabic, and Vietnamese online. So again, if you go to that study webpage, you can find those 4 versions of that survey. And I would definitely invite you to take the survey, and please share it with your friends and family and anyone you know who commutes through 7 Corners to take that survey as well, so that we can get the broadest feedback that we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Tonya. And Tonya is from our marketing communication outreach group. Thank you for the wonderful introduction on this. We got one more question on Q&A. Has this study taken into account the impact of the outlying side roads?
Mike, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Yes, we are taking into account the side roads. The actual area that we're looking at is beyond what was kind of shown you being the focus ring road. We look through origins and destinations about where people want to come from and where they're going through for this particular area. So to the extent that we're doing that, we're looking at Roosevelt and Wilson, Castle Road, Sleepy Hollow, Route 50. We're also looking at kind of the neighborhoods to the west and south of the interchange, as well to the east and also to the north. So as Nanditha kind of showed you earlier in the slides, we have the kind of the whole concept that's coming in, both being the ring road, the supporting simplified intersection that would be associated after the ring road is constructed, and then in addition, the grid of streets that would kind of come along as they support kind of redevelopment in the area. So that's kind of the long-term view of it, but we are taking into account the existing roads as they are today. To the extent that we take in some of a neighborhood street in which we're not trying to bring any more traffic through, we're not looking at that, but they are part of our model and part of our evaluation.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So I do not see any new question either on the Q&A or chat. So we are temporarily done with the written questions. We're going to switch to answer phone questions. Just a quick reminder, if you're joining us by phone, please push *3 to raise your hand to ask a question. When it's your turn, Farouk will call on you to ask your question. And after you are finished, please push *3 to unraise your hand.
I don't see any hand raised, Maggie.
Okay.
I just want to take an opportunity here to kind of just thank everyone for coming and attending the meeting. If you weren't aware, we also were performing 3 pop-up events this past Saturday in which we tried to reach out into the community kind of around the interchange. We were at the Eden Center, we were at the Wilson Multicultural Center, and we were for a brief period of time at the Transit Center. We actually had to close the Transit Center because weather and wind elements didn't allow us to safely stay there. But we did have a lot of feedback, and we did, while we were there and at the other locations, we did get a lot of public interest in the particular project. We handed out flyers that we've been part of this that have the same information that Nandita has on the screen as well. It's our hope to try to be able to do something similar before the next public meeting, which would be sometime in late spring, early summer. So we will try to get more. We will try to make sure that everyone's aware that that's coming. Give as much feedback as much notice as we can, and also provide the locations of where we're going to be. To the extent that we can spread out a little bit more into the Seven Corners area, we'll try. But you'll definitely try to see us out there in some way, engaging the community and everyone who uses this particular area before the next public meeting.
Farouk, do you see any phone questions?
No, Maggie, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. So I'll just, quick remind everyone who are attending the meeting. Please use the Q&A function to type your questions if you have any for us to read aloud and answer your questions. And if you are calling on your phone, just push *3 to raise your hand to ask a question. So I believe I got a new question here. When will your, sorry, this one, no, I'm sorry, this one is not to the bottom here. No, it's not a new question. It has been answered.
I think we could just give people another minute or two to see if they have anything else.
Sure.
We can wrap up the meeting early.
Sure. Okay, so, well, we got, I believe this is a new question. I want to make sure. Okay, so we have a new question. Are the design plans online?
We do not have design plans developed yet, as we are still going through finalizing the concepts. During the 3rd round of public outreach, after we receive feedback from the residents, we will be looking at developing detailed design plans. which will be available. We're looking at around summer of 2022 for this to be available.
But we will also put this presentation online so that people can access it, and we'll put a particular board or something that kind of has just the concept itself, so that way you are free to look at it in a little more detail.
Okay. Thank you, Nadisa and Mike. Next question. How many people are in attendance?
I can respond to this one. We got 23 at the beginning, but right now we have 15, not including the panelists.
Oh, really? At one point, I was looking at the participants, it was 30. So I guess some, maybe some people had to leave due to the time constraint.
I believe so, yes.
Okay, great. Next question. Is there a local example of a ring road where there is a lower speed limit, as you have been discussing?
So what I'm going to do is, I can't think of one off the top of my head, and I don't want to try to lead any of you astray. So we did have the concepts. These were all kind of born during the 2013 to 15 plan amendment for the Seven Corners area. Well, we can go ahead and kind of pull some of that, and what we'll do is all these questions are going to be posted online, and as we post these questions, we'll make sure to post an answer particularly to this one to kind of give some other examples. They may not be local, but we will have examples.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So I do not see any new questions coming in, but I will just give a few minutes to see if anyone wants to ask the question about this project. Just a quick reminder, if you're joining us by phone, you can push *3 to raise your hand, then we will call on you to ask your question.
Maggie, I don't see any hands raised, by the way.
Okay. All right. We have now come to the end of the meeting. We received lots of good questions tonight. Thank you, everyone. As a reminder, the questions that we did not get to tonight will be posted online at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/study/7-corners, along with a recording of tonight's meeting. If you didn't get a chance to provide feedback this evening, or would prefer to submit a feedback online, please visit the same website and fill out a survey. Feedback will be accepted through December 10th, 2021. You can call us by phone at 703-877-5600. And finally, you can mail comments to Fairfax County Department of Transportation, 4050 Legato Road, Suite 400, Fairfax, Virginia 22033. Thank you for your participation and have a good night.